Okay, this is the beginning of my first video neighborhood tour near Madison and Auburn. So this is just off of College Oaks, right before Auburn Boulevard. And the point of the video project is to get a general sense of what housing and neighborhoods are like near Eric's work. And I'm doing the video so that I can share this stuff with Eric and maybe with Mom. Okay, so I just crossed Date Road, and the road we're on is called Freeway. Funnily enough, just over the horizon ahead of us is a freeway. That would be I-80 headed north. So it looks like most of these houses are single family homes with attached garages. And they look like they were all built around the same time. They're almost all stucco. A couple of them with vinyl siding, but all single family homes with attached garages. And from the size of the lots and the size of the buildings, I'm guessing 2 bedrooms maximum. So these are little houses. So in a nearby street, I thought I saw some duplexes. And that's what I'm going to be looking for, are duplexes. But the general purpose of the video initially is going to be to get a sense of what the neighborhoods feel like, what they look like, what they sound like, how crowded are they, how clean are they, etc. And since neither Eric or I have ever tried to buy a house, I know you've got to sort of approach it a little differently than as if you were going to find a place to rent. Because with a rental, you're not making a long-term investment necessarily. I've just turned on to Date, and now I'm turning back down on Tyler Street. So anyway, with a rental, you're looking for price point and location, strictly location as accessible for where you need to get, whether it's transportation or shopping or work or school. I'm guessing that buying a house, you're hoping to have a little bit more of an investment in the neighborhood than just strictly being able to find stuff you want to find and get to places you want to get. When you're buying a house, I think you're interested. Well, this is nice to know. Highway patrol. So that's what you find when Date Street dead ends, or rather makes a right angle turn. I'm going back up Date. I'm sorry, back up Tyler. We're on Tyler, going to Date. That's Date up ahead. So I guess the future of property values is something to consider, and resale value, and the general condition of the buildings, of the era of the housing development itself and the general condition of the neighbors, buildings, and properties, and whether or not it's a rundown neighborhood where it would be difficult to resell, whether or not it's a really sketchy, scary, dangerous neighborhood where it might be difficult to get a good tenant or decent tenant. So now we're on date, and we're about to cross Madison. So my approach is going to be to kind of try to go within half a dozen blocks of Madison, back and forth, down a mile or so, maybe a couple of miles along Madison. And this is just to get a sense of the kinds of neighborhoods these are and their desirability for living, for investment, or income property. Like a lot of the stuff I learned to do, I've been kind of trying to learn how this is done by reading articles online, and I'm going to be watching a bunch of videos and stuff on YouTube to just learn what I can about the ups and downs and pitfalls. There's a lot of traffic on Madison. It's really busy. It's a 4-lane highway. And we are not 3 blocks off the freeway, and it's a big, big freeway. So we're crossing Madison on date. And you can see, well, we're just passing a Ford dealership and Starbucks and a T-Mobile. There's a little shopping complex business park ahead of us. We're not going into it. It's got a Goodwill and a couple other things. A lot of multi-family housing complexes in the general vicinity of the Target store where Eric works. And the sense I get is that a lot of it is low-income housing, maybe projects, what have you, which as a general rule aren't the most attractive neighborhoods for investment or income property. Because like in any neighborhood that has a concentration of low income or economically challenged residents, it doesn't speak to the future of property values. Okay, so I'm turning down the very first road off date, and it's Summerwood Circle. And Summerwood Circle looks like it's we just saw my first duplex. Looks like duplexes. Looks like maybe 80s era duplexes, ranch style, vinyl siding. Looks like a working class neighborhood, as it is right underneath a major power tower. But these are all duplexes, every single one of these houses. The road is really narrow, it's really tight, and parking is at a premium. So even though there's a garage for every house, there are cars lining this road. So my guess would be that either most of these tenants or homeowners have multiple vehicles, lots of vehicles, or there's multiple tenants or residents in each of the dwellings, which is real common in affordable housing project areas. You might have a couple of families, you might have extended family, and these are also duplexes. These are all duplexes on either side of the street. It's clean, it's a little less crowded, the road is not quite as narrow, but there are plenty of cars. So the lots look bigger, the yards are kind of sloping. I guess sometimes that means better drainage or worse drainage, but it's not all on one level plane. All duplexes, but based on the size of the lots and the apparent size of these houses, I'm saying 3-bedroom, 2 to 3 bedroom. And the name of this road is Venuto. So between Walnut and Date on Venuto, all duplexes. So Walnut looks like it borders right on commercial property. Looks like condos or apartment village and commercial. I'm going to turn around now and hang a U-turn and go back through this general district a little bit more. This is the north side of Madison now on Walnut. Boy, some of these properties we're just passing on the right look like they're extended compounds, like large lots, maybe formerly rural, former semi-rural ranch type farm. And some of these look like they're kind of McMansion or super houses that have been built on old lots. We're turning off Walnut onto Springfield. So we're on Springfield now, and these houses are single family homes, ranch homes, nice broad street. Very few cars, very few vehicles, extremely clean, really well manicured lawns, well groomed yards. There's sidewalks and soft curbs and curbside mailboxes. Now we're at the intersection of Springfield and Dark Woods, which is a court. Dark Woods Court is where we're seeing our first couple of large size duplexes. This one's showing a for rent sign on it. At least they kind of look like they're duplexes. Sometimes it's not real easy to see if there is a second entrance, but houses that have 2 garages, not just a 2-car garage, but 2 garages. Yeah, that one on the corner, that's definitely a duplex. This one on, yeah, these are duplexes right here. Newer, I'd say 90s era housing development. Could be 80s, but I think probably 90s. And based on the high peaked roofs, I'm saying ranch, single story with mezzanine or with limited second story room. We're back on Date. Now this looks like a larger housing community on the right, multi-family apartment complex, and there was one on the facing side of the street. Looking at single family homes right here. I'm gonna cross. Oh, we're actually on College Oak. I was calling it Date, but it's College Oak. So now we're on a street called Mary Kate, and Mary Kate also has a lot of ranch style duplexes. We're looking at ranch style duplexes, nicer lots, wider streets, clean properties, well manicured landscaping, a lot of cars, a lot of vehicles, and I'd say a significant amount of trucks and vans as opposed to just cars, which not always but often suggests working class. I mean, we've got an actual 18-wheeler truck parked in someone's driveway there. So this is a cul-de-sac at the end of this little road, and it borders on the freeway. A lot of stuff in yards here. Kind of a mixed neighborhood at the corner of Mary Kate and Missy Way. We're turning onto Missy Way, and you can see for yourself the number of trucks and fenced backyards. For the most part, by and large, in this entire video so far, we've seen very little in the way of fenced in front yards or cyclone fencing, and that's usually something that Eric thinks is a giveaway for a sketchy neighborhood. These are all larger ranch duplexes. Duplexes, probably 80s, 90s. I'll say 90s. A lot of them look like they've got skylights, peaked roofs, 2 garages. Some of these duplexes have a single car garage and a 2-car garage side by side. So that's interesting. All right, the end of Missy at the corner of College Oak. College Oak is fairly busy, but it's a little quieter. We're about 6 to 8 blocks off of Madison, north of Madison. Now here's the first big cyclone fenced in yard I've seen, and it's on the corner of Palm and College Oak. And right across from here is Walegra Park. And my guess would be, yeah, it's an older property. It's a cottage, it's a bungalow, and it looks like maybe it used to be farm property. Okay, so this neighborhood looks like it's mixed, some older places, but mostly newer, say late 80s, ranch style, single family. If I see a duplex, I'll holler out, but for the most part, single family. It's a fairly broad road, and there's a yellow line in it, and cars just piled up behind me wanting me to go faster, so I'm pulling over. So this is a more busy road, more heavily traveled, I guess. Okay, this is Kohler. I'm going to turn on to Kohler off of Palm. Alright, these are ranch style. I'm looking at duplexes. Ranch style with the attached garages on either side of the dwellings instead of paired together, dividing the dwellings. Mixed in with some single family ranch style. So a little of each, but mostly single family. Coming up on a cul-de-sac. Rear entries for some larger lots with big dogs and nice cedar fencing. Oh, this little neighborhood has a curbside mailbox. Back up and look at that a little closer. Curbside mailbox with a dozen addresses. So a lot of these places don't have their own discrete mailbox. They come to the nearby community mailbox. And that's interesting. So that was Shea. That little cul-de-sac was called Shea, S-H-A-E, at the corner of Kohler now. We're going to continue down Kohler, southward on Kohler. Looks like big backyards. Quite a bit of trees. Older trees. Really old trees on some of these properties. Pardon the glare. Alright, we just turned off of Kohler onto Willow Rock. Willow Rock, ranch style still. I'm seeing single family. So I'll just say single or duplex from now on, so it's less monotonous. So far these are all single. Multi-cars and a boat. Multi-car for a single. So maybe bigger families. Larger ranch. I'm guessing 3 bedrooms on some of these. Really well kept yards for the most part here. And some of these backyards look like they've got nice old stands of evergreen or fruit trees or oak. A couple of palm trees here and there. This is sort of a twisty-turny road. And it comes back to College Oak. So Willow Rock Way exits out onto College Oak. And College Oak turns into Palm. So this is the dead end, the terminus of College Oak. And we were back this way before where there's a big park on the corner. One of the things I'm hoping to find is a neighborhood that maybe has a little bit older homes, older duplexes, so the price point will be a little lower, but also maybe the older homes will be on older lots with more trees, older trees, a little bit more shade, because this part of town is notorious for having fewer trees, less shade, and it gets hot, it gets real hot. And I'm pulling over periodically on this road on Palm because cars come up behind me at a little faster pace than I want to drive. Okay, and here's the stop sign at Walnut and Palm. And so this time I'm going to turn left on Walnut off Palm. So now I'm heading north and I'm seeing White picket fence on the corner lot. Single ranch. These are all ranch. Buffwood. I'm going to turn west, left on Buffwood. These are singles, ranch, 1, 2, and 3 garages, but so far no duplexes. A lot of really manicured, involved landscaping right alongside sort of older, more tired yards. So maybe a neighborhood in transition. I'm seeing a couple of new structures or buildings that look like they might have gone up in the last 10 or 15 years. Again, this is a neighborhood right here where they've got one community mailbox posted on the curb, and that one looked like it had 24 addresses. These houses that have a big 3 cars divided garage are interesting. Don't see a lot of that. I guess you see them here. We're still in ranch homes, single ranch homes. Probably 2 bedrooms, maybe 3. Probably 2 though. Alright, corner of Buffwood and Timber Creek. Timber Creek. Ranch, single ranch. Palm Gate. We're on Palm Gate now. Single ranch again, and Palm Gate is a cul-de-sac. No outlet. Turning back. So we are less than a half a mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile, I guess, from Target right now at Madison and Auburn. Back onto Timber Creek now, heading east on Timber Creek, away from the freeway. I'm seeing some lawn alternative landscape treatments, so some drought conscious or budget wise homeowners, but still single ranch, medium lots, medium to large lots. Some of these look fairly new, like 15 years old, and a couple of them a bit older than that. All right, and this is where Timber Creek exit out onto Buffwood again. Buffwood. I'm a big believer in not always judging a book by its cover. And 20 years ago, a bunch of trucks and SUVs might have said one thing about a neighborhood. But nowadays, you see a whole lot more of those kind of vehicles. And especially living north of town like this, it is kind of semi-rural. Even though this is distinctly suburban living here, we're spitting distance from places where they've got horses all around. We're just not driving through those districts. These are all single ranch, smaller, cheaper looking houses. Not cheap quality, just they look less expensive. And based on the eaves and the wood frame structure, stucco and wood siding. I'd say these are 20-year-old, maybe 25-year-old. Some of them maybe 30, 35-year-old. Most of them are really well kept up. Older yards, older trees. The houses are smaller. The lots are a little smaller. The roofs lines are a little shorter. But these are all still single ranch. Coming up on the intersection of Leader and we're on Atlanta and Leader, and it's like an elementary school, now maybe a middle school on the left at Leader and Atlanta. Crossing, facing the schoolyard, facing the school field. Single ranches, established, stucco, but older. I'd say 80s era single ranches, definitely. One or two might go older than that, but I just turned on to Shenandoah off of Atlanta. Single ranches. Well, this is curious. On the corner here. Looks like some kind of art installation for sale. So these are for sale art made with tires that have been painted, and a lot of kids stuff in the yard, and weird tire art, and tire planters, and a lot of junk in the garage. So an eccentric neighbor on the corner lot. These are all single ranch. Seems like a lot of maybe slightly more relaxed lifestyle. We got benches or chairs in the front yard or on the front porch. Single ranch. No duplexes for like several blocks here. So I'm going to cross Garfield now. Garfield is a very busy street. It's a big road. Garfield goes down near Paul's house. So now I would say we're probably 1 mile from Target. If I turn to the right, if I go south, I'll hit Madison. And if I go east or straight, I have to dogleg it onto Keon Crest with a K, Keon Crest. And these are 2-story ranch. They might be triplexes. They could be duplexes, but I think they're triplexes. I've seen pictures of these kind of triplexes in real estate ads. Like they've got 1 lower and 2 upper is the way a lot of these go, and the lower entrance is in the front, and then there are gates to either side which lead to the stairways that go to the entrances for the 2 uppers in the back. I don't really know what the price breakdown is between triplexes and duplexes, and I don't really know what rents are like between triplexes and duplexes. I'm not real sure what the what it would cost to actually rent a unit in a triplex as opposed to duplex, but it sort of looks like a little bit more run down, a little bit more cars. So definitely an 80s, possibly 70s, or mixed 70s to 80s neighborhood. We're back on Garfield. So that was a loop, that Keon Crest. Garfield heading north away from Madison. Turning east on Brinef, or Brinette. Brinette? No outlet. So this is a dead-end street, supposedly. Big old vacant lot with a giant oak. Couple of cul-de-sacs with multi-address mailboxes posted. Duplexes. Ranch duplexes. Newer ranch duplexes, maybe 90, 95. 2 to 3 bedroom ranch duplexes. That's a cul-de-sac with no outlet. And this is a cul-de-sac with no outlet. So it looks like 3 cul-de-sac lobes off of Kinef. And each one of these little cul-de-sacs has its multi-address mailbox. They're all duplexes. For rent sign on that one. Kind of crabgrassy yards, but not too thrashed. I love the vacant lot, and it's a clean vacant lot. A couple of really nice wooden chairs, ladder back chairs, sitting next to the fence. But on the other side of that fence is several multi-family apartment complexes. So it may be, it's called Cross Point, those complexes. So maybe that's low income, I don't know. But this little no outlet 3-lobe cul-de-sac area was heavy walls at the going in there. We're on Garfield again. We're about a mile north of Madison now, maybe a little more. And I'm going to turn right onto Verner. Verner. V-E-R-N-E-R. Looking at some single ranch and some 80s era and 70s era wood structures across from 90s era stucco. So very mixed era development. The older houses are single ranch. I'm not really seeing any duplexes. These single ranches, though, they look really big. They look like they might have 3 or 4 bedrooms. And now at the corner of Verner Oak and Verner. So I'm going to turn up onto Verner Oak. So now I'm heading south. Southeast on Verner Oak, which is about a quarter mile off of Garfield. These are single ranch, and this is a dead-end cul-de-sac with a very large multi-family complex. Looks like a very fancy condos and apartments. Very nice neighborhood, multi-address mailbox posted in the curb. This is a better neighborhood. Very quiet, extremely quiet, very few cars. So off of Verner Oak again and back onto Verner. Big fenced in paddock on the corner at Verner past Verner Oak. Looks like there's been horses or stables here before. There's a lot of indicators of that kind of property here, including we're coming up on a place that's got a stables signpost on their mailbox. So this is actually where stables are. I've just seen my first flock of wild turkeys roaming around in a yard. 2-story, single family. Looks like 4 or 5 bedroom. Several of these. This is higher end, more expensive housing. Pretty big lots. A lot of open pasture land, but nothing more than 4 lot size pastures. Coming back up to Garfield, you see we are next to the New Hope Christian Fellowship Church, and across the street there is a shopping complex with a Century Theater. So I'm going to head south again on Garfield. So the big signal light, so we're, like less than a block from where the stables and the horse pastures are. And there's a shopping complex with a 4-lane throughway and 4 stoplights with turn lanes and turning lights, turn signals. I don't know if I'm being a very good tour guide. I mean, I'm seeing all of this for the first time myself. But it is very green, it is very lush right at this area, this little intersection. There's a lot of really nice manicured grassy knolls and hillsides and pastures and vacant lots and older oaks and elms and so forth. All right, we're on Garfield. Alphabet Ranch Preschool is there. Garfield headed south. I'm going to take the first right onto Spruce. Garfield at Spruce. And United Methodist Church, St. Andrew's United Methodist Church. Really big complex, but single story. All right, so we're looking at duplexes. Ranch duplexes, 90s era, with some little cul-de-sacs off to the right here. We're back behind that shopping complex here on Spruce. So this wall on the right is the wall that butts up against the parking lot of that shopping complex. And these are all duplexes. Some of them are quite old, actually. There's some of these look like they're early 80s, maybe 70s duplexes. It's definitely kind of semi-rural. A lot of duplexes. A lot of trucks, a whole lot of trucks. So this is Shiloh. So I'm on Shiloh off of Spruce. And it looks like Shiloh doubles back onto Spruce again. So it's a loop. A loop of duplexes, and 1 or 2 of them are 2-story duplexes, so they might be lots of bedrooms, maybe 4 or 5 bedrooms, some of these. And now that we're back on Spruce, single ranch, single ranch, single ranch. at the corner of Spruce and Fremont. Fremont looks like a dead end, and it's just a vacant lot. We're right at the Elkhorn Boulevard Greenback Lane exit of the freeway. I'm looking at the wall for it. So on the other side of these people's backyard is I-80. And we're right by Greenback and Elkhorn. So that's the southernmost limit of Roseville, or the northernmost limit of North Highlands neighborhood, where Eric's Target store is. So I'm at the intersection right now of Valparaiso and Shenandoah. And these all look like single ranches, but older. Probably late 70s or early 70s single ranches. Older trees, older yards, older wood structure, lower ceilings. And I'm turning on a cul-de-sac or a loop that didn't have a street name. So maybe this is the Valparaiso. A couple of these are newer, but almost all of these are pretty old. I'm seeing shingle and vinyl siding and rock face and a lot of creative ways of trying to upgrade really old houses. Couple of fences, but most of these, the yards aren't fenced in the front. But some of these houses are showing their age. But it's still a fairly well kept up neighborhood for being barely suburban, kind of semi-rural, or in the middle of semi-rural. I'm saying 3-bedroom for a lot of these houses, but some of those really old ones we just passed in the previous street were definitely small. I'd say 2-bedroom. So Eric, I hope you're getting something out of this tour. Sense of what the homes and neighborhoods are like in the areas just a mile north of your store, even less than a mile north of Target. Okay, we're back on Shenandoah, crossing Valparaiso. So that Valparaiso wasn't a cul-de-sac, it was a loop. I'm going to keep going south till I start seeing some more duplexes, because most of these are single ranch with 1 2-car garage, and they look smallish, maybe 3-bedroom, but the rooms would be small because these houses don't go back too far on the lots. But pretty well established yards and landscaping. Still on Shenandoah. Oh, we went down this part of Shenandoah before. Let's turn up onto Tiburon off Shenandoah. Single ranch, single ranch, single ranch. 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom most. I tell you, some of these older single ranch, I wouldn't be surprised if they were 1-bedroom with a full dining room. I mean, if they're 2-bedroom, they're tight. You know what I'm saying? Some of these yards are fairly thrashed looking as far as the condition of the lawns, but I would chalk that up to how old these houses and lots are. I mean, some of these houses are definitely 70s era. And there's just so long that a yard is going to look fresh before you need to totally redo it. So up ahead is a little hedge between where we are and Garfield. And you can see how fast the cars go by on Garfield. It's a very busy road. Illegal dumping is a crime, big sign posted. I still on Shenandoah, even though it turned? Maybe. Now we're on, yeah, we're going to turn on to Fernwood. So this is Fernwood. Single ranch, both sides of the street. 80s era. Some of these have been completely remodeled fairly recently, but a lot of them are just really older homes. Now, I haven't seen much in the way of security bars on windows in any of these neighborhoods, which is, I think, a very good sign. Sort of like not seeing a bunch of cyclone fencing in front yards. Okay, we're back at Shenandoah, so Fernwood to Shenandoah. Gonna cross Shenandoah. This is my first viewing of a motorcycle parked on the front walkway. That's interesting. Still single ranch, single ranch, single ranch. Kind of looks like the biggest duplex neighborhood was one of the more modern modern developments. Say maybe 2000s era complex of duplexes where all the houses on the street were duplexes. That was interesting. But these are all single ranch, probably not super expensive, but since they're not duplexes, they're not income properties, so that's definitely not what we're looking for. I think duplexes used to be a lot more common or popular than they are now. And I think that the older the neighborhood I look in, the more duplexes I'm gonna see. So if it's older, let's say 90s and before, I'm gonna see more duplexes. And anything after the 90s, probably less duplexes. Okay, so this is the front side of that school we saw earlier off of Shenandoah. Looks like they got an elementary and a middle school side by side. It's Pioneer Elementary, it says, at the corner of Costa and Pioneer. And then here we have a very large playground, and it looks like maybe there's a softball field at the other end of the playground. A lot of cool toys in this playground. A lot of kids. I could be wrong, but it seems to me that the more affordable, maybe sketchy, lower income neighborhoods don't really have much in the way of playgrounds. You see playgrounds near nicer schools in nicer neighborhoods with higher price tags. I mean, that's just my perspective, but it seems like the bad neighborhoods I've lived in and the kind of crappy neighborhoods that I've lived near haven't usually had really nice, well-appointed playgrounds for children. And we're back at Atlanta and Leader. I'm going to take Atlanta back towards Garfield. And I'm going to drive down Garfield a little ways and inspect some of the other neighborhoods off of Garfield, heading back towards Madison. And I think my curiosity is that maybe, here's a street called Hemlock. Why did I turn onto Hemlock? Just for the heck of it. Older single ranch, single ranch, single ranch. And there's Garfield up ahead. So I'll be back on Garfield. So my curiosity is that maybe the further from the freeway, further I get from the freeway, the older the neighborhood might be, and the more older buildings or older homes might be there, and maybe the more older type of homes, like old duplexes or houses on big lots, semi-rural. Kind of funny the way Sacramento is laid out, because if you go way south down to Elk Grove, the semi-rural neighborhoods down there become plumb rural. They just become totally rural. And a big lot with a field is not an indication of a rich person's home or a wealthy upper class, upper middle class home. It might be a working ranch or working farm. And up here, it's almost like that, but we're a little bit closer to the part of town where it's Fair Oaks and Carmichael, and they've got what look like kind of the trappings of a ranch or pasture land or a semi-rural environment, but they are kind of pseudo mansions, and the people that live there maybe are richer people. They have fancier cars, and there's maybe more security gates. So I just crossed. Did I cross Madison? Did I even look at what road I crossed? No, it wasn't Madison. So I'm still headed towards Madison. I'm going to turn left. I'm heading south on Garfield. There's another school. And that school is Laurel Elementary. Alright, this is Madison up here, so I'm going to turn left onto Madison. Madison at Garfield. So from my previous driving around in this general area, sometimes when traffic is heavy, we'll head home from Target by coming down here to Garfield, taking Madison down to Garfield, and then heading south on Garfield instead of, you know, Auburn to Watt or any of those roads. But if I go down Garfield, I can get that almost, I think it goes all the way to Fair Oaks Boulevard. So Garfield is mostly stop signs, not as many stop lights. It tapers down to two lanes. It's a little bit more quiet of a roadway, and a lot more semi-rural and not commercial. There's no commercial zoning out there. So that's another thing that I'm kind of hoping for as far as the residential neighborhoods I want to look at, is that they not border on commercial or mixed zoning or mixed use zoning. I think that when you're right next to businesses, I think there's more littering and there's more loitering and there's more noise and maybe more crime, or there's certainly more drive-through and more traffic and stuff like that. So what might be a dentist's office today, in a couple of years down the road, could be a tattoo parlor, Not that there's anything wrong with that, but a neighborhood that's got tons of tattoo parlors and vape shops and that sort of thing, ammo stores, you know, not necessarily the most pleasant neighborhoods to live in. I wouldn't want to be living right next door to a tattoo parlor and a vape shop, you know, or a liquor store. Just kind of. So I'm heading east on Madison, crossing Hackberry Lane, and I think I've crossed into the rich neighborhoods where they're either very large, expensive single-family homes or big, fancier condo complexes. So there's a couple of shopping centers on either side of the road here. There's Lumberjacks. This is Manzanita, Madison and Manzanita. It's a pretty popular intersection. Turning south on Manzanita. Cafes and coffee shops and all kinds of little stores back at that intersection. Yeah, townhouses, walled communities. They got sound walls and sound barriers here. So I think maybe I'm gonna go a little ways down on Manzanita and see what it looks like. A lot of trees. Quiet, not very crowded. But this is a very busy road, Manzanita. Okay, welcome to Carmichael. This is technically Carmichael. I'm sure property values just jumped 100,000. I'm going to take the next right. Crestview Village. Oh, I didn't take the next right. I think it was no outlet at Jameson there. Okay, so this big intersection I'm approaching. I'm passing a Save Mart on the left, and I'm going to turn right onto Winding Way. Winding Way in Manzanita in Carmichael. It looks and feels more expensive. But I know that I'm now headed due west into the sunset, passing a Valero gas station. And even though there's walled and gated, expensive, modern, upscale houses, there's also a lot of old farmland and old ranch land. I'm crossing Hackberry on Winding Way. I think any address that's got Winding Way is going to be automatically way more expensive than it would be if that same property was anywhere else, because Winding Way is a pretty well-known, nicer, more expensive neighborhood. But I'm only taking it to get back towards the general vicinity of the Target store on Madison. So now I'm on Winding Way. I just passed Hackberry and Cameron Ranch, and this is where Winding Way Doglegs becomes a single lane. There's a creek, I know, in this area. A lot of older rich people's houses out here, big lots, heavy foliage, almost like woodland on their lots, just like small forests. No sidewalks, just drainage ditches, big heavy gates and fences. Hillsides overrun with ivy. Almost like a freaking rainforest down there. So we're really not that far away from Paul's. Paul's in the neighborhood that's just, maybe 8-10 blocks to our left or to the south. We're kind of headed west on Winding Way. And it is 10 minutes to 5 on a Saturday. And still, even though it's Saturday, there's quite a lot of cars here on Winding Way. And if you think about it, Winding Way lets out onto Auburn Boulevard, which is the road you get onto to go to the freeway. So that's where Walnut Avenue connects to Winding Way that we just passed through the light. And the creek is on our right. And we're continuing on Winding Way, and you can see it winds. And the next major intersection, I think, is going to be Auburn Boulevard, and it'll be a dead end. So Winding Way is going to dead end on Auburn, and we're going to have a chance to turn right and go back up towards Madison. Oh, College Oak. So College Oak, actually, the road that goes to the right, where Winding Way dead ends, and if you go to the left, Winding Way becomes Auburn. So College Oak. This is actually, College Oak is the road that's ARC, American River College. So that's the campus for American River College. And I see a lot of very expensive homes off to the left on the other side of the road. And a Muslim temple, or mosque. A lot of condos and apartment complexes, which you would expect right near a college campus. American River College is in the Los Rios Community College District, and so it's connected to Sacramento City College and Cosumnes River College. Pretty big campus. So we're less than a mile from the Target store right now. This road up here is Myrtle, and I'm going to turn right on Myrtle. It's the first street north of the American River College campus. I know that Myrtle actually cuts through with maybe one dogleg to Garfield, because I've studied that on a map before, looking for a better route during traffic and how to more easily cut across to Garfield instead of taking Madison, which is real busy. I see a ton of what must be college housing. 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, a complex called the Madison, and they're all ranch style apartments laid out like motel blocks. And then we're looking at duplexes, single and duplexes, and condos. I'm going to turn into this condo driveway and do an illegal U-turn. Technically, it's a Y-turn, not a U-turn, so it's not illegal, technically. Going back along Myrtle, headed west again, and this is Myrtle at Walnut, north of the American River College campus, next to the Madison apartment complex, which is a ranch apartment complex, and I'm looking at a lot of duplexes. So these are ranch duplexes on my right, and on the left are a bunch of multi-unit one-bedroom apartments, most of them look like. And then here we've got a big older house, a ranch, maybe a 3-bedroom with a big backyard. A couple of those side by side. Random stray dog wandering around, no collar. Looks like it could easily be a park or a farm on the other side of this big fence. And it says, future home of Sarah Allen Hospice House at King Arthur Place. And I'm on Walnut, headed north between Garfield and Winding Way, or Garfield and College Oaks, I should say. Now these are 2- and 3-story, not just ranch, somewhat newer duplexes, or maybe triplexes. So I'm just now seeing my first abandoned home. It's got plywood, boarded up windows. So, got some broken out glass. It looks like it's been like that a long time. Still, it doesn't feel like a very sketchy neighborhood. You can have foreclosures in just about any neighborhood. Turning on to Sunshine Lane, which is a cul-de-sac, otherwise known as a dead end. Okay, so there's some mattresses thrown at the curb and a bed frame. So these are duplexes, ranch duplexes. Ranch duplexes right across the street from what looks like a really large single-family home in a yard that has 6 to 7 foot high wood fencing all around the front. So I think that the big fences and walls and gates out here, I think it's a security thing. It's real quiet. It's a dead end. I kind of have mixed feelings about cul-de-sacs and dead ends because I kind of think that cul-de-sacs are 20th century answer to drive-through crime. You're not going to have as many people racing through your neighborhood for a shortcut or a drug deal or running away from the cops if you live in cul-de-sacs. People have to drive slower and they have to know where they're going, and so a suburban neighborhood that's a bunch of cul-de-sacs is maybe going to discourage the more criminal element, or at least just the nuisance element that you see more often in a more urban environment. So, no sidewalks or curbs, just drainage ditches, a lot of older trees, a lot of shade. We're looking at single ranch and large security factor, older single ranch and remodeled single ranch. And then as soon as you turn here, you start seeing somewhat newer duplex ranch. Duplex ranch. interesting. Still, it seems like here we are back on now I've forgotten the name of this through road. I think it's Myrtle, might be. I'm sneaking up on Madison is what I'm doing. This is the back driveway to the McDonald's off of Auburn at Madison. And here's Madison. And the road we've just been on is Walnut. So Walnut Avenue at Madison. So I'm going to merge onto Madison here, go up a few blocks and cross Madison, see what that's like. Kind of looks to me like the neighborhoods south of Madison are more expensive single-family homes on bigger lots. And here's Hemlock. So an awful lot of the suburban streets around here double back and loop around. Hemlock is one of those. The intersection of Auburn and Madison is more like a peninsula. There's like a triangle-shaped peninsula to the north of Madison at the intersection of Auburn. And then it just widens out so that the neighborhoods north of Madison and east of Auburn are a lot bigger, and you go south of Madison and it's more concentrated. The roads are closer together. There's not as many roads. So this is not a part of town where all the streets are laid out in a rectangular grid pattern. Instead, it's a little bit snaky. The roads snake around and wind around. And it seems like they wind around some natural features too, because I've crossed a few creeks and little valleys and hollows, and there's a lot of older trees. So some of these little neighborhoods and buildings cropped up in between those nooks and crannies, and the roads grew around that. This is Estrella Middle School, and it looks like a pretty run-down middle school. So this is the corner of Hemlock and Auburn. So we're going to stay on Hemlock and cross Hemlock, or cross Auburn on Hemlock. So here's the Popeyes chicken up here at the corner of Hemlock and Auburn. There's a AutoNation collision store or shop, Pro Youth, Bank of America. Old shopping center nearby has a grocery outlet. Small strip malls, little Circle K with gas. Revival Christian Center, Assemblies of God at the corner of Palm and Hemlock. Big, wide suburban roads. So we already know Palm is a big, wide road north of Madison. And that Assemblies of God place is huge. Looks like they've got like 6-7 lots together on the corner. And we're at the corner of Hemlock and Cherokee, and in every direction I see single ranch. 80s era to 90s era single ranch. Clean, quiet, Not real crowded. Okay, the places are getting a little older now, early 80s maybe. Lots are a little bigger. Still on Hemlock. So the closer to the freeway, as I suspected it would be, is where the lower rent district is. So the further away it got from the freeway, the more expensive it started to look and feel. U-turn, back down Hemlock towards Auburn. Single ranch up and down both sides of this street. So there have been a few neighborhoods where there was mixed single and duplex. And there was that one little pocket of houses that were triplex, upper and lower. There was a couple of little roads that were just like a little pocket of almost nothing but duplex. I think what I've seen the most of is single ranch. Okay, duplexes now. I'm looking at duplexes here. A couple of duplexes. And an apartment complex that had a carport. This is next to the Circle K. So right by the Circle K, there was a couple of duplexes. And that's just to the northwest of Auburn Boulevard on Hemlock. So now I'm going to take Auburn south towards Madison. Interesting if there was a pocket of affordable housing, affordable duplexes that was pretty close to the golf course. That might be an interesting area. It's down at Auburn and Fulton, so between here and Fulton, it's what, maybe 2 miles, maybe 3. Okay, so we're coming up on Madison. I'm just going to keep going south on Auburn and see what I can see. A lot of Auburn borders up against the I-80 freeway. I'm going to turn off the camera for a few minutes till I get out of the glare.